The station floated in the darkness of space like a small island in an endless ocean. It was called Horizon's Edge, and it was one of the last places where humans still lived freely among the stars. The year was 2247, and humanity was losing a war it never asked for. Taiho sat alone in his small room on the station. He was 32 years old, with tired eyes and gentle hands. He worked as a xenobiologist, which meant he studied alien life forms. But these days, there was not much studying to do. These days, there was only surviving. The room was dark, except for a small lamp near his bed. Taiho liked it this way. The darkness was peaceful. It reminded him of nights back on Earth, in the small village where his grandmother used to sing him to sleep. He was not alone in the room. On his chest, two small creatures slept. They were no bigger than kittens, but they looked nothing like any animal from Earth. Their skin was pale blue, soft like flower petals. Tiny patterns of light moved across their bodies, glowing and fading like slow heartbeats. They had 4 small arms each, and their faces had large closed eyes and small mouths that made soft sounds as they dreamed. Taiho called them Luma and Vael. He did not know their real names. He did not know what their parents had called them. He only knew that 3 months ago, he had found them dying in the wreckage of a destroyed ship, and he had chosen to save them. It was the decision that could get him killed. These creatures were Velari. The Velari Empire had been trying to destroy humanity for 2 years. Their soldiers were tall and terrifying, with hard shells covering their bodies and claws that could cut through metal. They saw humans as insects to be crushed. But Luma and Vael were just babies. When Taiho had found them, they were cold and alone, crying in a language he did not understand. Their ship had been destroyed in a battle. Everyone else was dead. They had been left behind to die. Taiho could not let that happen. He had wrapped them in his jacket and carried them back to his room. He had fed them with special nutrients he created in his lab. He had kept them warm against his body because they seemed to need the heat. Slowly, over weeks and months, they had grown stronger. Now they would not sleep unless they were on his chest. They needed to feel his heartbeat. They needed to hear him breathe. It was strange, Taiho thought. These were the children of his enemy, but they trusted him completely. He opened an old book of poetry and began to read out loud. His voice was soft and low. The words were from an ancient Korean poet, writing about mountains and rivers and the passing of seasons. Taiho did not know if Luma and Vael understood the words, but they seemed to like the sound of his voice. Vael made a small happy noise and pressed closer to his chest. Taiho smiled. For a moment, he forgot about the war. He forgot about the death and the fear. There was only this room, this lamp, these 2 small lives, breathing against his heart. Then the alarm started. The sound cut through the silence like a knife. Red lights began flashing in the hallway outside. Taiho felt his whole body go cold. He knew what that alarm meant. Everyone on the station knew the Velari were coming. Taiho stood up carefully, holding Luma and Vael against his chest. They woke up and made scared sounds. He whispered to them softly in Korean, the way his grandmother used to whisper to him during storms. It seemed to help. Their small bodies relaxed a little. His door opened and Minji rushed in. She was his colleague and his friend, a young woman with short black hair and worried eyes. She was breathing hard from running. "Taiho, we have to go," she said. "The evacuation shuttles are leaving in 10 minutes. The Velari fleet is huge. They are going to destroy the whole station." Taiho looked at her. Then he looked down at Luma and Vael. They were clinging to his shirt, their small claws gentle against the fabric. "I cannot go," he said. Minji stared at him. "What are you talking about? You will die if you stay here. If I go on the shuttle, people will see them," Taiho said. "They will know what they are. They will kill them, Minji, or they will take them away and do experiments on them. I cannot let that happen. Minji looked at the creatures on his chest. She had known about them for 2 months now. She was the only person on the station who knew Taiho's secret. At first, she had been afraid. She had told him he was crazy, but she had watched him care for them day after day. She had seen how they looked at him with trust and love. Taiho, she said, her voice shaking. They are Valari. Their people are coming to kill us right now. They are babies, Taiho said simply. They did not choose this war. They did not ask to be born into an empire that hates us. They are just children who were cold and alone and scared. How can I abandon them? Minji wiped tears from her eyes. She wanted to argue more. She wanted to grab him and drag him to the shuttle. But she knew him too well. She knew he would not change his mind. Where will you hide? She asked. The quarantine section in the medical bay, Taiho said. It has thick walls. It is designed to contain dangerous diseases. Maybe the Valari will not look there. It was a weak plan. They both knew it. But it was the only plan he had. Minji stepped forward and hugged him carefully, trying not to disturb Luma and Vale. You are a fool, she whispered. A kind, wonderful fool. Go, Taiho said. Get to the shuttle. Live. Tell people that not all of us chose to hate. She pulled back and looked at him one last time. Then she turned and ran down the hallway toward the evacuation area. Taiho watched her go. Then he started walking in the opposite direction, toward the medical bay. The station shook as something hit it from outside. The Valari ships were beginning their attack. Taiho held Luma and Vale tighter and moved faster. The hallways were chaos. People were running and screaming. Some were crying. Taiho moved through them like a ghost, keeping his arms wrapped around the small bodies hidden under his jacket. He reached the medical bay and went inside. It was empty. Everyone had already fled. He walked past beds and machines until he reached the quarantine section at the back. He typed in his access code, and the heavy door slid open. The room inside was small and white and very clean. There was a bed in the corner and some basic supplies. Taiho went inside, and the door closed behind him with a solid sound. He sat down on the bed and leaned against the wall. Luma and Vale were trembling. They could feel his fear. He took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Then he began to sing Dot. It was an old Korean lullaby, one his grandmother had sung to him when he was a child. It was about the moon watching over sleeping children, keeping them safe through the night. His voice was not beautiful, but it was steady and warm. Slowly, Luma and Vale stopped trembling. Their eyes closed. Their breathing slowed. Even with explosions shaking the station around them, they fell asleep on his chest. Taiho kept singing. Outside the door, he could hear distant screams and the sound of plasma fire. The Valari soldiers had boarded the station. They were killing everyone they found, but in this small white room, a human man held 2 alien children and sang them to sleep. He did not know if he would live through the night. He did not know what would happen when the soldiers found him. He only knew that right now, in this moment, Luma and Vale were safe and warm and loved. That was enough. That had to be enough. Commander Orange stepped onto the human station and felt nothing but disgust. The air smelled wrong. The lights were too bright. Everything about this place reminded him why humans needed to be destroyed. He was tall, even for a Valari. His shell was dark red, almost black, marked with the scars of 100 battles. His eyes were cold and empty, the eyes of someone who had stopped feeling long ago. In his claw, he carried a plasma blade that glowed with deadly blue light. Behind him came his soldiers, 20 of the finest warriors in the Valari Empire. They called themselves the Silent Death, and they had earned that name many times over. No human had ever survived meeting them. Find them all, Oren said. His voice was deep and hard. Kill them all. Leave nothing alive. The soldiers spread out through the station like shadows. They moved fast and quiet, their claws clicking softly on the metal floors. They had done this many times before. They were very good at it. Oren walked slowly through the main corridor. He was in no hurry. The humans had nowhere to run. Their little evacuation shovels were already destroyed. This station was their tomb now. He passed the window and looked out at the battle. Valari warships surrounded the station, their weapons glowing. Beyond them, the stars burned cold and distant. Oren had seen many stars. He had brought death to many worlds. This was just another day of work. A scream echoed from somewhere ahead. Then silence. His soldiers were doing their job. Oren thought about the war and why it had started. 2 years ago, a human exploration ship had entered Valari space without permission. The Valari had destroyed it, of course. But somehow, a few humans had escaped. They had gone back to their people and told them about the Valari Empire. The humans had tried to make peace. They had sent messages, offered friendship, asked for talks. The Valari had laughed at them. Peace with creatures so weak? The very idea was insulting Dot, so the war began. And now, 2 years later, it was almost over. The humans were nearly extinct. A few more battles, a few more stations destroyed, and they would be gone forever. The galaxy would be clean again. Oren felt a small satisfaction at this thought. He did not hate humans, not really. He simply did not think about them at all. They were like insects. You did not hate insects. You just stepped on them. His communicator clicked. It was Keth, one of his best soldiers. Commander, we have cleared sections 1 through 5. Approximately 40 humans eliminated. Moving to the medical bay now. Good, Oren said. Continue. He kept walking, stepping over bodies without looking at them. Some were soldiers. Most were not. Scientists, workers, people who had probably never held a weapon in their lives. It did not matter. They were all the same in death. The station shook again as another Valari ship fired on it. They were softening it up, preparing to destroy it completely once Oren's squad was finished inside. Standard procedure. Oren reached the medical bay and went inside. His soldiers were already there, spreading through the rooms, checking behind every door and under every bed. They had found a few humans hiding here. Those humans were dead now. Commander. It was Keth again. He was standing near the back of the medical bay, pointing at a heavy door. There is something behind this. The sensors show one life form. Human size. Oren walked over and looked at the door. It was thick and strong, designed to keep dangerous things contained. He could see through the small window that the room inside was a quarantine chamber. One human, he said, hiding like a rat in a hole. Keth made a sound that might have been laughter. Should I breach it, Commander? Oren nodded. Do it. Keth placed a small explosive device on the door. The other soldiers stepped back and raised their weapons. Oren watched calmly. He had done this 1,000 times. Inside the quarantine room, Taiho heard the sound of the soldiers outside. He heard their strange clicking language, their heavy footsteps. He knew they had found him. Luma and Vale were awake now, their big eyes looking up at him with fear. They could sense the danger. They pressed closer to his chest, trembling. Taiho whispered. It is okay. I am here. I will not let anything happen to you. He did not know if that was true. He did not know if he could protect them from what was coming. But he said it anyway, because that was what you did when someone was scared. You told them it would be okay, even if you were not sure. He started singing again. The same lullaby. The one about the moon. His grandmother had sung it to him during the war on Earth, when he was just a little boy. There had been bombs falling outside, and he had been so scared. But her voice had made him feel safe. Her arms had made him feel protected. Now he was the one singing. Now he was the one trying to protect. Luma and Vale listened to his voice. Slowly, their trembling stopped. Their eyes grew heavy. Even with death waiting just outside the door, they felt safe in his arms. They trusted him completely. Taiho kept singing as tears rolled down his face. He was going to die. He knew that now. But maybe, if he was lucky, the soldiers would kill him quickly. Maybe they would not notice the small creatures hidden against his chest. Maybe they would leave before they discovered the twins' dot. It was a small hope. Almost no hope at all. But it was all he had. Outside, Keth finished placing the explosive. He looked at Oren and waited for the command. Oren raised his claw. "Breach," he said. The explosion was loud but controlled. The door blew inward, smoke filling the small room. Oren's soldiers rushed in, their weapons ready, their eyes searching for the enemy. Oren walked in after them, his plasma blade raised and glowing. The smoke cleared dot, and everything stopped. Oren saw a human, male sitting against the wall. He was young, with dark hair and gentle eyes. He was not holding a weapon. He was not trying to fight. He was just sitting there, his arms wrapped around something pressed to his chest. No, not something. Someone. Oren's eyes focused on the small shapes against the human's body. Pale blue skin, bioluminescent patterns, 4 small arms, faces with large eyes and small mouths. Vari, 2 Velari infants. For a moment, Oren could not move. His mind could not process what he was seeing. It was impossible. It was wrong. It made no sense. Then one of the infants made a soft sound in its sleep. A small chirp, the kind Velari babies made when they were happy and safe. It was a sound Oren had not heard in many years. Not since before the wars. Not since before he became what he was. The infant's tiny claw curled around the human's finger. Holding on, trusting, Oren's soldiers had their weapons pointed at the human. They were waiting for his command. One word from him and the human would be dead. But Oren did not speak. He looked at the human's face. The human looked back at him. There was no fear in those eyes. No hatred. Just a quiet acceptance. And something else. Something Oren did not understand. The human spoke. His voice was soft and calm. He spoke in broken Velari, the words clumsy but clear. They were cold. They were alone. I kept them warm. Oren felt something move inside him. Something he had buried long ago. Something he had tried to kill. He lowered his blade. "Commander?" Keth said, confused. "What are your orders?" Oren did not answer. He just stood there, looking at the human and the sleeping children, trying to understand what he was seeing, trying to understand how everything he believed could be so wrong. The silence in the room was heavy. It pressed down on everyone like a weight. Oren's soldiers stood frozen, their weapons still pointed at the human, waiting for an order that did not come. Ho did not move. He kept his arms wrapped around Luma and Vale, feeling their small bodies rise and fall with each breath. They were still asleep. Somehow, through all the noise and chaos, they had stayed asleep. Perhaps they felt safe. Perhaps they knew, in whatever way babies know things, that he would protect them. Oren stared at the scene before him. His mind was racing. He had killed hundreds of humans. Maybe thousands. He had never felt anything about it. They were the enemy. They were nothing. But this human was holding Velari children. Royal children. Oren recognized the patterns on their skin now. The special glow that only appeared in the bloodline of the queen. These were not ordinary infants. These were the lost twins. The children everyone believed were dead. 3 months ago, A Valari transport ship had been attacked by human fighters near a small colony world. The ship was destroyed. Everyone aboard was killed. Among the dead were supposed to be the Queen's newborn twins, Luma and Vale. The whole empire had mourned. The Queen had gone mad with grief. She had ordered the destruction of 100 human worlds in revenge, but the twins were not dead. They were here, alive, sleeping peacefully on the chest of a human. "Commander." Kath's voice was sharp. "What do we do?" Orin held up his claw. "Wait." He took a step closer to the human. Taiho watched him come, but did not try to run or fight. There was nowhere to run. There was no point in fighting. All he could do was stay calm and hope. Orin looked down at the twins. They were healthy. Their skin glowed bright. Their breathing was steady and strong. Whoever this human was, he had taken good care of them. How? Orin asked. His voice was rough. "How did you find them?" Taiho spoke slowly, using his broken Valari as best he could. 3 months ago, the destroyed ship near the colony. I found them in the wreckage. They were dying. I saved them. Why? The question came out harsh, almost angry. Why would you save Valari? We are your enemy. We are killing your people. Taiho looked at the sleeping twins. Then he looked back at Orin. They were babies, cold, scared, alone. What else could I do? Orin did not have an answer. In his world, you destroyed your enemies. All of them. Young, old, it did not matter. War was war. Mercy was weakness. But this human had shown mercy to Valari children. Enemy children. He had risked his life to keep them safe. He had fed them and cared for them and sung them to sleep. For 3 months, while his own people were dying, he had protected the children of the empire that was destroying everything he loved. Orin could not understand it. It went against everything he knew about humans. Everything he had been taught. He could be lying, Kath said. Maybe he stole them. Maybe he was going to use them as hostages. No, Orin shook his head. Look at them. Kath looked. Everyone looked. They saw how the twins clung to the human's shirt. They saw how relaxed they were, how trusting. Valari infants did not trust easily. They only slept this peacefully when they felt completely safe. These infants loved this human. There was no other explanation. One of the soldiers, a young warrior named Brem, raised his weapon higher. "It does not matter," he said. "He is still human. We have our orders. Kill everything." Orin turned to face Brem. His eyes were cold and dangerous. "Put down your weapon. But Commander, put it down. Now." Brem hesitated. Then he lowered his weapon. He was afraid of Orin. Everyone was afraid of Orin. Ho watched this exchange without understanding all the words. But he understood the meaning. The tall commander was protecting him. For now, Luma stirred against his chest. She made a small sound and opened her eyes. For a moment, she looked confused. Then she saw the Valari soldiers surrounding them, and she made a scared noise. Taiho whispered. He stroked her head gently. "It is okay, little one. Do not be afraid." His voice was soft and warm. Luma looked up at his face and calmed down. She made a happy chirping sound and pressed closer to him. Orin watched this. He watched how naturally the human comforted the child. He watched how the child responded to him with pure trust. It was the same way Valari infants responded to their mothers. Something inside. Orin broke. He had spent his whole life believing that humans were monsters, animals, things without souls or feelings. He had killed them without remorse because he believed they were not really alive. Not the way Valari were alive, but this human loved those children. And those children loved him. That was real. That was true. And it meant everything Orin believed was a lie. "We need to contact the Queen," he said. His soldiers looked at him in shock. "You did not just contact the Queen. She was the ruler of the entire empire. You went through proper channels. You followed protocol." "Commander," Kef said carefully, "are you sure that is wise? If we are wrong about this, she will have us executed. And if we are right," Oren said, "we will have returned her children to her. Make the call." Keth hesitated for another moment. Then he nodded and took out his communicator. He stepped into the corner of the room and began speaking in rapid Valari. Taiho watched all of this, holding the twins tight. He did not know what was happening. He did not know if he would live or die. But he could see that something had changed. The soldiers were not looking at him with hate anymore. They were looking at him with confusion. And maybe, just maybe, something like wonder. Vale woke up now too. She looked around at all the strange faces, then looked up at Taiho. He smiled down at her. "Good morning, little one," he said in Korean. "Did you sleep well?" Vale did not understand the words, but she understood the tone. She made a happy sound and reached up with her tiny claws. Taiho lowered his head so she could touch his face. She patted his cheek gently, the way she always did when she was happy. The soldiers watched in silence. None of them had ever seen anything like this. A human and Valari children together, caring for each other, loving each other. It should have been impossible. It should have been wrong, but it was beautiful. Keth finished his call and walked back to Oren. His face was pale. "The Queen is coming," he said. "She will be here within the hour. She wants to see this for herself." Oren nodded. He had expected this. The Queen would want to see her children with her own eyes. She would want to know the truth. He looked at the human. Taiho looked back at him. "The Queen comes," Oren said slowly, using simple words. "She is the mother. She will decide what happens." Taiho understood. The mother was coming. The person these children belonged to. He felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief that they might be reunited with their family. Sadness that they might be taken away from him. And fear about what would happen to him. He held Luma and Vale closer. They snuggled against his chest, content and happy. They had no idea how much their lives were about to change. Oren gave orders to his soldiers. "Guard the human. Do not harm him. Make sure no one enters this room until the Queen arrives." Then he stood in the corner and waited, watching the human and the twins. He thought about everything he had done in this war. All the people he had killed. All the worlds he had destroyed. He had believed it was right. He had believed it was necessary. Now he was not so sure. If one human could love Valari children, maybe other humans could too. Maybe they were not all monsters. Maybe this war was not as simple as he had thought. Oren did not know what would happen when the Queen arrived. He did not know if the human would live or die. But he knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. The Valari flagship was called Eternal Hunger. It was the largest ship in the fleet, a mountain of dark metal floating in space. Inside it, Queen Neth sat on her throne, surrounded by shadows and silence. She was old for a Valari, nearly 200 years. Her shell was silver gray, marked with the patterns of royalty. Her eyes were deep and tired, the eyes of someone who had seen too much and felt too much pain. 3 months ago, she had lost her children, her twins, her last hope for the future. They had been taken from her in a moment of violence, killed by the creatures she hated more than anything else in the universe. Since that day, she had ordered the death of millions. Human colonies had been burned. Stations had been destroyed. Ships had been torn apart. She did not care about strategy anymore. She did not care about the future of the Empire. She only wanted revenge. She wanted to make the humans suffer the way she suffered. Her advisors were worried about her. She could see it in their eyes. They thought she had gone mad with grief. Maybe they were right. Maybe madness was all she had left. Then the message came. A young officer rushed into the throne room and fell to his knees before her. He was shaking. Everyone shook when they came before the queen these days. "My queen," he said, "there is a message from Commander Orn. He says it is urgent. He says it cannot wait." Queen Neth looked at him with empty eyes. "What does he want?" He says he has found something on the human station. He says you must see it yourself." "I do not care about human stations," the queen said. "Tell him to destroy it and be done." "My queen." The officer's voice was trembling. "He says it is about the twins." The queen went very still. The whole room went still. No one moved. No one breathed. "What did you say?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "The twins, my queen. Your children. Commander Orn says they are alive." For a long moment, Queen Neth did not react. Then something changed in her eyes. A spark. A flame. Something that had been dead coming back to life. "Show me," she said. Now, the officer rushed to set up a visual connection. A large screen flickered to life in front of the throne. Static filled the image for a moment. Then it cleared. Queen Neth saw a small white room. She saw Valari soldiers standing guard. And she saw something that stopped her heart. A human sat against the wall. He was young and thin, with dark hair and gentle eyes. In his arms, pressed against his chest, were two small figures. Pale blue skin. Glowing patterns. 4 tiny arms, each her babies. Her Luma and Vale. They were alive. They were healthy. They were sleeping peacefully in the arms of a human. "No," Queen Neth whispered. "It cannot be." But it was. The patterns on their skin were unmistakable. The shape of their faces. The way they moved. These were her children. She would know them anywhere, in any place, at any time. She watched as one of the infants woke up. It was Luma. She looked around with wide eyes, saw the soldiers, and made a scared sound. The human immediately stroked her head and whispered something soft. Luma calmed down. She looked up at the human's face and made a happy chirp. Then she snuggled closer to his chest. Queen Neth felt tears running down her face. She had not cried in months. She had thought she had no tears left. But now they would not stop. Her children were alive. Alive and safe. In the arms of a human. How? She asked. Her voice was broken. How is this possible? Commander Orn's face appeared on the screen. My queen, the human says he found them 3 months ago, in the wreckage of the transport ship. He says they were dying, and he saved them. Why? The question tore out of her. Why would a human save Valari children? We are destroying his people. We killed his friends. Why would he help our kind? I asked him the same thing, my queen. Orin paused. He said they were cold and alone, and he could not let them die. Queen Neth stared at the screen. She stared at the human holding her children. She had spent 3 months hating his kind. She had ordered the death of millions because of what she thought they had done. And all that time, one of them had been keeping her babies alive. The human must be punished, said her chief advisor, stepping forward. He had no right to touch royal children. He should be executed for his crime. Crime? Queen Neth turned to look at him. What crime? He saved them. He kept them alive when our own ships left them to die. He is human, my queen, our enemy. We cannot show weakness. Silence. The word cut through the room like a blade. The advisor stepped back, fear in his eyes. Queen Neth looked at the screen again. She watched the human sitting quietly with her children. He knew he might die. She could see it in his eyes. But he was not trying to bargain or beg. He was not using the twins as shields or hostages. He was just holding them, keeping them calm, protecting them until the end. What kind of creature did that? What kind of enemy showed such kindness? "I will go to the station," Queen Neth said. "I will see this human myself." "My queen, that is too dangerous," the advisor began. "I said I will go." Her voice left no room for argument. "Prepare my shuttle, now." The advisor bowed and rushed away. Everyone in the throne room began moving, preparing for the queen's departure. Queen Neth kept watching the screen. She watched the human sing something soft to the twins. It sounded like a song, a gentle melody she did not recognize. Her children seemed to like it. They closed their eyes and relaxed against him. This human had been singing to her babies, feeding them, caring for them. For 3 months, while she burned worlds in grief, he had been their father. She did not know what to feel. Gratitude? Anger? Confusion? Everything was mixed together inside her dot when her shuttle was ready. She walked through the halls of her ship alone. Her guards followed at a distance. They knew better than to walk beside her when she was in this mood. The shuttle ride to the human station took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of silence and thought. 20 minutes of looking at the stars and wondering how everything had changed so fast. When she arrived at the station, her soldiers lined up to greet her. They knelt as she walked past, their heads low. She barely noticed them. She walked straight to the medical bay, straight to the quarantine room where her children waited. Commander Oren met her at the door. He bowed deeply. "My queen," he said. "They are inside." "The human has not moved. Has he harmed them?" she asked. "In any way?" "No, my queen. He has only protected them. Even when we breached the door, he did not try to use them as shields. He just held them and sang." Queen Neth nodded. She took a deep breath. Then she stepped through the door. The room was small and bright. In the corner sat the human, her twins still pressed against his chest. He looked up when she entered. His eyes widened at the sight of her. She was massive compared to him. Twice his height, with a shell covered in royal patterns and eyes that had seen centuries pass. She could kill him with a single blow, but she did not attack. She did not threaten. She just stood there, looking at her children. Luma woke up first. She saw her mother and made a happy sound, but she did not reach for her. She stayed pressed against the human's chest. Vale woke up next. She saw her mother too. She chirped once, then turned and put her face against the human's shirt. Queen Neth felt her heart break all over again. Her children did not know her anymore. They had been apart too long. The only parent they knew now was this human. She looked at Taiho. He looked back at her dot, and in that moment, she made a decision that would change everything. Queen Neth looked at the human who had saved her children. He was small and soft, with no claws or shell or natural weapons. By every measure the Valari used, he was weak, helpless, nothing, but he had done what her entire empire could not do. He had kept her children alive. She took a step closer, then another. Her massive shadow fell over him like night falling over the land. Taiho felt his heart pounding in his chest. Luma and Vale stirred against him, sensing something important was happening. The queen knelt. It was not a bow or a sign of submission. It was the act of a mother coming down to see her children. Her great body lowered until her face was level with the twins. Slowly, carefully, she reached out one claw toward Vale's sleeping face. The claw was sharp enough to cut through metal, but she touched her daughter as gently as a flower petal landing on water. Vale stirred. Her eyes opened. She looked at the great creature before her with curiosity but not fear. Then she made a small sound and snuggled back against Taiho's chest. Something wet fell from Queen Neth's eyes. Valari did not cry the way humans did, but they had their own way of showing grief and joy. Silver liquid dripped from her face and fell to the floor. "They do not remember me," she said. Her voice was soft, broken. "They were so young when they were taken, and now they know only you." Taiho did not know what to say. He just sat there, holding the twins, feeling the weight of this moment. The queen looked at him. Her eyes were deep and ancient, full of pain and confusion and something else. Something that might have been respect. Why? She asked. The word carried all her questions in a single sound. Why did you save them? Why did you care? Why did you do this thing that makes no sense? Taiho thought about how to answer. His Valari language was not good enough to explain everything he felt. So he spoke simply, from the heart. "I found them alone," he said. "They were crying, cold. I picked them up. They stopped crying. They held on to me. So I held on to them." He paused, looking down at Luma and Vale. "That is all," he said. "They needed someone. I was there." Queen Neff stared at him for a long time. She had ruled the empire for over 100 years. She had made war against a dozen species. She had done terrible things and had terrible things done to her. But she had never met anyone like this human dot. He had no reason to help her children. Every reason to hate them. Their people had killed his friends, destroyed his world, tried to end his entire species. But he had looked at two helpless babies and seen not enemies but children who needed care. "You could have let them die," she said. "No one would have known. No one would have blamed you." Taiho shook his head. "I would have known. I would have blamed myself. Every day. Forever." The queen felt something change inside her. A wall that had been there for years began to crack. She had believed humans were animals. Mindless destroyers who cared nothing for life. She had believed this because it made the war easier. It made the killing easier. But this human had shown her the truth. Humans could love. Humans could care. Humans could choose kindness even when hate would be easier. If one human could do this, how many others could too? How many humans had she killed who might have been just as gentle, just as caring? The thought was unbearable, so she pushed it away. There would be time for guilt later. Right now, she had to make a choice. She stood up slowly. Her soldiers watched her, waiting. The whole empire was waiting, though they did not know it yet. Everything that happened next would shape the future of two species. "What manner of creature are you?" she asked the human. It was not really a question. It was a confession. A confession that she had been wrong about everything. Taiho looked up at her. "I am just a man," he said. "I am not special. I am not a hero. I am just someone who did what he thought was right." The queen turned to face her soldiers. Commander Orn stood at the front, his face unreadable. Behind him were the warriors of the Silent Death, the most feared killers in the galaxy. "The war ends," Queen Neff said. "Today. Now. Silence. Complete and total silence." No one moved. No one breathed. "My queen," one of her advisors said carefully. "You cannot mean. I mean exactly what I said." Her voice was iron. "I have spent 3 months burning worlds because I believed my children were dead. I believed humans were monsters who deserved destruction. And all that time, a human was keeping my babies alive. Keeping them warm. Keeping them safe." She looked at Taiho again. He was still sitting there, holding Luma and Vale against his chest. The twins were awake now, watching everything with wide, curious eyes. "This human showed more love to my children than my own empire did," the queen said. "When they were lost and dying, we left them behind. We gave up." He did not. She paused, letting her words sink in. "I do not know if all humans are like this. Maybe most of them are not. Maybe this one is special. But I know now that I was wrong to hate them all. I was wrong to kill them without thought. and I will not do it anymore. Commander Oren stepped forward. What are your orders, my queen? Tell the fleet to stand down. Stop all attacks on human ships and stations. Send a message to the human leaders. Tell them we wish to talk. And the humans on this station? Oren asked. The survivors? Queen Neth looked at Taiho. Let them live. All of them. They will be our first gesture of peace. The soldiers began moving, carrying out her orders. Messages were sent. Ships received commands to hold their fire. Across the galaxy, weapons went silent. Taiho watched all of this, barely understanding. Everything was happening so fast. An hour ago, he had been waiting to die. Now the queen of the Valari Empire was ending a war because of him. No, not because of him. Because of Luma and Vale. Because two small lives had bridged the gap between species. The queen turned back to him. She lowered herself again until they were face to face. I do not know what will happen now, she said. Peace is harder than war. There is much pain between our peoples. Much blood. It will take time to heal. She reached out and gently touched Luma's head. The infant looked at her with big eyes, then looked at Taiho, then back at the queen. Slowly, carefully, she reached out one tiny claw toward her mother. Queen Neth took the small claw in her massive one. Luma chirped happily. But we will try, the queen said. Because of you. Because you showed me that kindness exists even in the darkest places. Taiho felt tears running down his face. He had not expected to live. He had not expected any of this. All he had done was care for two babies who needed him. Thank you, he said. It was all he could think to say. The queen smiled. It was a strange sight on her ancient face, but it was real. No, she said. Thank you. Later, on the observation deck of the station, Taiho stood watching the stars. The Valari fleet still surrounded them, but the weapons were quiet now. No one was shooting. No one was dying. Minji found him there. She had survived the attack by hiding in an air duct. When she heard that the fighting had stopped, she could not believe it. She had come looking for Taiho to find out what had happened. He told her everything. The queen, the twins, the end of the war. When he finished, she just stared at him. You saved the galaxy, she said. By babysitting. Taiho laughed. It was a tired, broken laugh, but it was real. I did not mean to. I just wanted to help them. That is why it worked, Minji said. Because you did not do it for a reason. You did it because it was right. They stood together in silence, watching the ships and the stars. Somewhere behind them, Queen Neth was holding Luma and Vale for the first time in 3 months. The twins were getting to know their mother again. It would take time, but they would learn to love her too. Ho knew he would have to give them up eventually. They were not his children. They never had been. But he had been their family when they needed one, and nothing could take that away. What happens now? Minji asked. Taiho looked at the stars. They seemed brighter somehow, fuller of possibility. I do not know, he said. But whatever it is, we face it together. Humans and Valari. Maybe it will be hard. Maybe it will fail. But at least now we have a chance. He thought about Luma and Vale, about their trusting eyes and tiny claws, about the way they snuggled against his chest and listened to his heartbeat. They had given him a gift, the gift of hope, the gift of proving that love was stronger than hate. And now the whole galaxy had a chance to learn the same lesson. It was enough. It was more than enough. It was the beginning of something new.